we have a very renowned personality with us. He's an Oscar awardee, the producer of film Flying Machine. He is none other than Mr. Hugh Welchman. We'd like to offer.
The Flying Machine came about as a result of that statue, which I had to make my last film, Peter and the Wolf, in Poland because of Nick Park and Tim Burton. When I got the money together to do Peter and the Wolf, Nick Park was doing Wallace and Gromit feature film, and Tim Burton was doing Corpse's Bride in the UK. And so there were no animators, stop motion animators, free at all in the UK. So I could either wait for 6 months until they finished, or I could look abroad to do my film abroad. And I visited 7 studios in 5 countries and decided that I liked the Polish guys that I met, and that I would do the film in Poland. So I got to Poland and I didn't like it so much when I was there, but it was too late. I was fixed in, and so we made Peter and the Wolf there. And then, although it was a tough experience, I really enjoyed my time in Poland and thought there was very fantastic artists there. So I set up a company there, which I didn't know what to do with. It was literally had one person in the company, and that was just because I thought that there were opportunities in Poland and that there were talented people to work with. And then 6 months later, Peter and the Wolf won an Oscar, which you know, is a big thing for me. It's not such a big thing in the UK, because in the UK they have like 6 or 7 Oscars every year, and for much bigger awards than Best Short Animation, like, you know, Best Actor and Best Actress in the year that I got this. So there wasn't that much news coverage in the UK, but in Poland it was only the second film Oscar in Polish history, so it was a very, very big deal in Poland. And I was phoned up by the Minister of Culture, and he said, I'd like you to do another film in Poland, and I'd like you to do it to celebrate the music of Chopin. So, for those of you who don't know, Frédéric Chopin is a composer, one of the greatest composers of all time, but he's a great composer who essentially just composed composed music for one piano. So it's solo piano music. So I sat down and I listened to his music, because I didn't really know it at the time, and after listening to his music for 1 month, I realised that the guy was a genius, but it was going to be quite a struggle to make a film using his music, because of the fact that it was solo piano, which is, you know, very unusual in filmmaking terms, to have a soundtrack that's just solo piano. The other thing is that not only does he do solo piano, but he does short pieces. So we had to put together several pieces to create a 30-minute film. But one of the overriding drivers for this film was the fact that we needed to do it for the Chopin 200th anniversary. And so a lot of the decisions that were made, which has a relevance to animation, were made because of the schedule that we had. One of the decisions that I made is that out of the 264 pieces of short music, we narrowed it down to 24 pieces, which is the etudes, but I hadn't narrowed it down further than that. So we actually recorded all of the etudes with the Chinese pianist Lang Lang, who some of you may know, and if you don't know, he's the most famous classical musician in the world right now. And well worth listening to, he's very good. So we recorded all of the etudes with Lang Lang, and we ended up using 12 of them in the feature film, and I had 12 other recordings which I wasn't going to use, which seemed like a waste, seeing as, you know, he's the most popular pianist in the world. So I decided to commission 12 short films as well as the feature film we were doing. In terms of the animation, I think there's still one screening of The Flying Machine left, so you'll be able to see what I've been talking about if you go and see the film. We did something very unusual, which was really again out of the desperation provided by the deadline. Is we chose a story about a magic piano which transforms into a flying machine. And we decided, because of our previous experience and our team, that we were going to do this in stop motion animation. Now, as probably quite a lot of you know, in terms of animation, most puppets are about this size and has 9 or maximum 11 joints within them, and the animators are moving them frame by frame. You move it a frame, take a photograph, move it again, take a photograph, move it again, take a photograph. A long process. We had, for the flying machine, a puppet which was this size and had 125 joints and required over 150 individual impressions by an animator for each frame. There are 24 frames for every second. And that was when we actually managed to move the machine, and it took us 3 months to learn how to move the machine, because the whole film takes place flying through the air, so it's all against blue screen. So we had to have this flying machine suspended in the air, and we had to engineer it so that there was no subsidence taking place during making the animation, during making the shots. And some of the shots took 2 weeks to do. We actually had one shot that took 3 months to do, but that didn't have the flying machine in. And so the biggest challenge for us was working out how we were going to rig this machine and make sure that it was precision engineered so that it could move frame by frame. Nothing has ever been done like that in stop motion, and I was told that by my team, and I thought it was going to look magical to have this incredible Jules Verne contraption moving in stop motion. And you know, at various points in the process, people said, "Well, why don't you just do it in CG?" And I said, well, the reason we're not doing it in CG is because there's something magical about something being really there, and you can see that it's a real object, and that even with the best CG, you can't get that sense of it being a completely real object. The eye still knows, you know, when it's CG. When we got to the end of the film, and I looked at it, and I thought that that was actually correct and not just kind of ephemeral justification that I came up with early on and then stubbornly stuck to. I think that with stop motion you get a kind of magic which is condensed life from the fact that the animators are putting their hands onto the object and physically moving it. So you get the, in terms of animation, I think with stop motion you get the nearest to having real actors because of the fact that you've got this condensed life, this person is acting very slowly, with a lot of concentration to give performance to this puppet, to give life to this puppet. So that was the first big obstacle, was to learn how to move this machine. The second thing that I think is remarkable in animation terms is we did the longest shot in stop motion history, which was a continuous 3-minute zoom tracking shots set on a skyscraper with 2 puppets dancing, one on the skyscraper and one who was on the flying machine flying around the skyscraper. So in terms of the flying machine, I think from a stop motion perspective, those were the biggest challenges. We also did 11 short films, including the world's first painting animation in 3D. And the way that we did that was we physically built sets and projected CG animation onto the sets and painted over the sets frame by frame. One other thing which I think is remarkable is that we took all of Chopin's drawings that Chopin did when he was a kid, and we turned it into an animation which is black and white sketches. And I was quite worried about doing this because I thought, you know, it's kind of artistic, you know, it's very art house, and I was very surprised by the audience reaction. Is that I think for parents, for adults, they're quite nostalgic about that technique, and the thing that I didn't realise is kids have never seen that before. It's like, and so actually this has come out to be one of the one of the things that the audience is most passionate about, and that's a very old form of animation. So I don't really know, in terms of our audience, how many of you are animators, how many of you are general filmmakers, how many of you are students. So I'd like to open it up to questions, and if you have any questions for me.